Hey everybody, welcome to Mission Fitness. So today our guest has an athletic career that spanned over 40 years until a very rare heart disease that I can't even pronounce. The initials are ARVD, took hold. But she's doing much better now, and she's here to talk with us today about it. Karen Boudrie, you might remember her from her days as a news anchor here in New Orleans. And full disclosure, she is a dear friend of mine. We've been friends for 2.5 decades. So thank you so much for coming on the show to talk with us.
My pleasure. It's awesome to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a minute. So your career, your athletic career, you started playing soccer at Ohio State, where you went to school.
Well, actually, before that, I started in like junior high playing soccer. So it was. I'm originally from Cincinnati. It was huge. It was a big. That's what we all did. All the girls played soccer. So then I just, it was a natural for me to try to play at the collegiate level. And
you did.
And I did.
And to play at Ohio State, that's huge. I know we associated with the football team, but to make the team at a school that big, you were quite the athlete.
Well, I tried hard. I was one of those that I didn't have as much natural ability as some people, and I worked hard. But even getting there, prior to that, I lived in New Zealand for a year. And I played I found a team there, and then I was able to make what was called a rep team, representing a certain part of the country to play in the New Zealand Nationals. So that was my entree to Ohio State. I had played in the Nationals in New Zealand, and then made my way to Ohio State. But we were just a club team. We didn't have. If we would have been a true varsity sport, we would have had to take a scholarship away from football, and that wasn't going to happen.
That was, not in the Midwest in particular. So. And then you coached your daughter in soccer for years.
I did for years, and then I played, every city I worked in before I wound up in New Orleans, and when I wound up here, I found soccer teams to play on, and I played co-ed. I played, on women's teams as much as I could. I love the sport, and I would. I would love to still be able to play if I didn't have a bad knee and a bum heart,
So, that leads us to, how did you find out that you had this disease? Did it just pop up? What happened?
Yeah, it was last summer. I was walking with a friend, and it was 7 o'clock at night. And it was hot, and I just thought, I just can't take the heat anymore. I was thinking, boy, this is brutal. I feel kind of lightheaded, like I really need to lay down, stop. And we were just walking, just doing at a good pace. And that was the first time I knew something was going on. And I attributed it in the beginning to heat. But when it kept repeating, and then I took a trip to Seattle, and it was not hot in Seattle at that time. That was in September. And I'm wearing a jacket, and it still happened, where I was feeling, after a little bit of exertion, walking a couple miles with my husband, we were walking around the town, and I'm like, I don't feel good, something's not right. So I immediately said, okay, I've got to go figure this out. Yeah.
So then, did you immediately call the doctor, or did you wait, or what did you do?
Well, I talked to some folks in the medical profession. I'm like, should I see, here's my symptoms. I'm kind of lightheaded at times after some exertion. I feel like, something's not right. I'm out of breath, and I just generally don't feel good, and I don't know what's up. And my first thought was cardiologist, and it was the right call. So I made an appointment to get in, but before I could get in, I wound up in the emergency room. I was feeling really bad one day, just outside walking, and again, it was hot. I kept thinking, it's a heat thing. But I wound up in ER, and they noticed what are called PVCs, and that's premature ventricular contractions. And everybody has them, it's very, not everybody, but I would say it's very common to have them, but not as many as I was having. So they're like, ooh, we need to study this. And so it started from there, basically.
And after a series of tests, they discovered that it was ARVD.
Right.
Right.
Arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia. Very rare, very, very rare. So I was at Auctioner and they said, we maybe see a case like this once a year or once every few years. We don't see this. But they knew the right protocol right off the bat when I had gone into tachycardia from this. Get a pacemaker defibrillator implanted right away. That's the first thing you do for this. And they said, this is what we're going to do. I said, okay, I don't have a choice, right? So, yeah.
And then you said, we were talking earlier how you find this in athletes, really finely tuned, well-trained athletes. This sometimes happens, or that's where you see the most cases.
Right. In fact, I called my sister in New Zealand. I said, have you heard of this disease? She goes, I've treated 3 people for it, and they're all super athletes. I mean, big swimmers. One was a cyclist. They were, top of their game kind of super athletes. Now, I wasn't in that category by any means, but knee had stopped me from continuing to play soccer. So I would just do, normal workouts, and I can't run anymore or anything. But there is a correlation between this disease and extreme sports and extreme workouts that they found, and it's a progressive disease. So the fact that I didn't get it till later in life, I had, by all definitions, I guess, a milder case of it. So I was very lucky.
So it actually benefited that it was later in life that
yes,
that
and
they
maybe
found it.
it benefited because that I wasn't able, maybe my knee getting racked up stopped me from progressing sooner, perhaps. I don't know. But unfortunately, the young people that get it, it truly is, if it's come on that early in your life. There's 12-year-olds. You hear sometimes,
wow, I didn't know it was that young.
It's very sad. And then there are people that do pass it on to their children. So it is a genetic defect of sorts that just progresses. And again, they think the exercise plays a part in it. And they're still doing a lot of studies. It's been maybe 20, 25 years that they've really started understanding it better. And it started with an Italian soccer team. Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore has been working, and they have a whole team dedicated to this. And that's where I've spent some of my time.
That's where you,
But an Italian soccer team was where they first found what was going on with this disease. And there were several players apparently that had it, and they were able to, identify what was going on, that it was this genetic thing, and start working on treatments. There's no cure, but there's certainly treatments.
And it's a cruel irony too, because you think, I do everything I possibly can to stay in shape, keep the heart strong, I exercise, you eat well, and then the disease that gets you is the one because. Now, you did say it was genetically based.
Yeah.
So there may be people out there who might have the gene for it, but they're not at the athletic level that would force them to get it for physiological reasons.
I know. My daughter says, she goes, well, I've been practicing for this my whole life. She goes, I'm a couch potato. So she got tested and didn't have it.
Oh, so there is. Okay.
She said, well, good for. But honestly, they've said the worst thing I could do is to sit back and say, I'm scared to move a lot and do a lot because I don't want to get my heart rate up, because this is an arrhythmia problem. It sends you into tachycardia. Your heart rate goes over 200, and people just drop dead. And I was just very lucky that we caught it before that happened. But, there are plenty of people that die from it, never even knowing they've had it. They're athletes, 18, 19-year-olds, in tip-top shape, and all of a sudden, they're dead, and they find out later that that's what they had. So I don't know if it's like when you're that young, you don't understand the symptoms, you don't feel it, you don't know.
Push through it.
You push through it, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I knew something was wrong, and I honestly had to push a little bit to get some test results. I had to work the system a little bit to get, because people were kind of, mamby-pamby, and I'm like, something's not right.
Yeah.
And
I just want to say, oh,
when
you're
I finally
overheated,
got
you're
the
dehydrated,
call,
yeah.
And when I finally got the call from the doctor, said, get to the ER now. I'm afraid you might just keel over and die if you don't get here right now. So if I had not pushed, I might not be here today. If I had not listened to my body and made sure, I had to call up and say, do you have those test results yet? Kind of thing. So
that's the key. I think sometimes we feel like, oh, I don't want to bother them, especially in a COVID world now,
right.
where, we think of emergency rooms as completely overrun, and some of them are, I realize, but at the same time, we're afraid to, I don't know, maybe let me just give it another day. But in this case, it could have been deadly had you not done something.
Right.
Yeah.
And luckily, I did my research and I found out that Johns Hopkins has a team dedicated to this, and they were amazing because, locally they didn't have a lot of answers. And I asked somebody, well, can I live a normal life expectancy with this, with treatment, whatever? And one person said to me, no. And I was like, oh.
That was it. Just no.
No, we don't know. But Johns Hopkins was like, of course you can. This is, we have people that live for years and years. And luckily I had what they considered a mild case. Basically, it's scar tissue that builds on the right ventricle, scar tissue or fatty tissue, they call it, that then just sends your heart into, crazy arrhythmias. So at Johns Hopkins, they did a procedure called an ablation. And ever since I had that, I've run into, I don't know how many people, oh, I had an ablation, for different reasons, but similar kind of heart problems. And it's so much more common than you realize, people out there with these conditions. But Johns Hopkins did it a little bit differently. And folks here said, you're right to go there, because we don't do it for this disease, and they do it every day. So the person that did the procedure on me has done more ARVD ablations than anyone in the world. So I was blessed and lucky as all get out to have been able to find him.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, we are very glad that they did. Now,
Thanks.
Moving on from that, how did you recover physically from that? I mean, so obviously your lifestyle has had to change in terms of exercise, but I mean, you still have to exercise.
Right, and that's
so
what
how
they
did
said.
you adjust?
The worst thing is to become a couch potato because you're scared.
Right.
I wear my Fitbit, which I don't have on, and I monitor when I start to feel a little out of breath. I'm like, let me check my heart rate. So I constantly check my heart rate, which is probably not the best, but. I'm on some medication, and what's called an ACE inhibitor, but minimal. I don't have any blockage. I don't have heart disease. I don't have I do have a heart disease. I don't have heart failure. I take that back. I have no blockage. They checked, so arteries are all good and clean, and they want them to stay that way.
Right.
So it's a matter of just taking care of yourself, and it was a little bit of a recovery after surgery. And then I found that I wasn't really feeling that great a couple months after. And it turned out, I still have some residual problems from it that medication and moderation will take care of. I mean, they told me I could jog, but I can't because of my knee. So I can do, but it's right now, I'm trying to find the new normal, what really works, and just listen to my body. When I feel tired, I've just got to stop and rest, and then I usually get a second wind, and I get up and I
the mental aspect of it too, because when you're used to exercising heavily, and then all of a sudden you stop, then you get into the guilt feeling, what's going to happen to my body physically when I look in the mirror, all that. So that's got to be a huge adjustment when you have to accept the things of youth are no longer possible, but you're still alive, which is
right.
and you have a great quality of life.
Right, absolutely. So there's very few things that I can't do anymore. Extreme exercise. They said don't go run marathons, but they said if you feel like jogging and doing a little weightlifting, just don't do major major stuff.
And listen to your body.
And listen, and take care of it, and
Right.
that's what I'm trying to do. But I do worry about people who don't, or you need to listen to your body. You really, really do. And
what about, we know you're really big in Mardi Gras. We know you love Mardi Gras. I know I do too. Would you still be able to ride on a float and do things like that, or march if you wanted to?
Yeah, I did. I rode this past year after having had the surgery 2 months after surgery.
Oh, okay.
Not even 2 months after surgery. And they told me, yeah, go ahead. I have to take it a little bit easier. I don't have the stamina I had, but I don't know if that's something that will come back a little bit. I'm still learning, Probably not, but it's okay, But yeah, pretty much I've not had to cut out a ton of things in my life. I'm trying to be stress-free because we all know what stress does to you.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, just going to the grocery store,
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or
in this world, yeah.
Exactly. Or getting backed up in traffic and that pulse rate goes up. I mean, you have to be mindful of that.
But I shouldn't have an arrhythmia problem from the ablation. That's the main thing. So I'm not real worried about that. But I have a little friend that if anything were to happen, and it would shock me back into rhythm. So
has it done that yet? Has it shocked you?
It happened once, and they said it was because they think it wasn't adjusted properly. Like they have it on kind of like a factory setting when they implant it.
Okay.
And that's what they said. They said, you probably would have paced yourself out of, because I said, I'll tell you how it happened. I was literally in the backyard picking up dog poop, and I had 3 scoops. So bending over was kind of an issue for me, to bending over, the inversion kind of thing, the blood. So, and I was like, ooh, I feel bad. And I sat down, and it just went bump. And they said I probably would have paced myself out of it. It would have, but it was set to.
So it's literally a shock.
Yeah. People say it feels like a mule kicks you in the chest, and it wasn't actually that bad, but it was scary as crap.
Well, I guess so. Because you don't know what it feels like. They tell you, this might happen, and you have no idea what a shock on your chest is going to be like.
Yeah, but I, I'm really blessed that they found it. I'm blessed, I thank God every day that I'm here. Yeah. Because there are so many people, and I had to stop reading the Facebook page because there's a page dedicated to it, and I tell you, some of the struggles people go through with it are just heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, and I feel for those people. It is not a fun disease, but you can survive, you can live with it. So.
Well, yeah, and you're a shining example of that. So you can give hope to people who might be struggling with it and say, look, you can, someone who is. Who is not 18 has survived it and is doing well. I mean, one last question. It's a cliche question, but your advice, to someone that has it, was just diagnosed with it, regardless of the age. What's your advice to them?
If they were just diagnosed and they don't, it's every case is different. So I think that try not to listen to people who say, oh, this is the drug you should be on, it worked for me, because there's a multitude of drugs and there's a multitude of sort of cocktails or whatever, or plans. Go to Johns Hopkins. It's all, that's everybody needs to go there because they are the experts. I don't care where you live. You may have a great cardiologist. I guarantee you he hasn't dealt with as many cases as the folks at Johns Hopkins have. They're amazing, and they truly hold your hand through the whole thing and just.
And this is what they do.
This is what they do.
Yeah.
And nobody knows this disease better than those doctors, than that ARVD team. And that to dedicate themselves just to that is amazing.
Of a rare disease,
exactly. Of a rare disease, right. And they're doing research, they're working on a cure. It's amazing how many people, I guess more and more people are being diagnosed because people end up being misdiagnosed and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, get to Johns Hopkins. That's That's the step.
That's the takeaway.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming. It was great seeing you.
Yeah, it's
we
great
gotta,
seeing you
we definitely have to do
too.
this more, and you got to come back and
Okay.
chat with us some more. We'll talk
About
about
something else.
Yes,
Yeah,
so
let's
we'll
talk about something else.
uplifting. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We'll
I'll tell you my new regime of, because I'm still working it out, what I can do and
Oh yeah,
you
we
know,
can talk
what I'm
about
gonna
food
do.
too. We can talk about food.
Oh
what we
yeah,
can,
there's a lot of, just eating
Yeah.
heart healthy is the main thing. for
Yeah,
me.
and that's probably a lot of stuff
Yeah.
that we're just not even aware of. So
Yeah.
but we'll definitely come back and we'll chat some more.
Will do.
All right.
Will do.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, that does it for us for this edition of Mission Fitness. Don't forget to check us out and subscribe on our YouTube page and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.